I'm assuming that if you are a software developer or an aspiring one, you are at least somewhat familiar with ChatGPT. Maybe you've used it a few times for some quick code snippets or answers to your pressing problems. Well, there's a whole deeper level of utility it can bring to your software development process that you might not be tapping into yet. And that's what I want to share with you in this video. Hi everyone. In case you haven't seen me before, my name is Gwen, and in my journey from getting my first job as a software developer almost 9 years ago to becoming a tech lead, I have been able to see firsthand how AI can transform the way we approach the field of software development. This video is going to be part of a larger series on using AI tools as software developers. And of course, I'm going to kick it off using the most popular tool, which is ChatGPT. I'm going to show you how to leverage this tool to increase your productivity and also show you some practical tips and examples of how to use it to really improve your development process. I just want to note here that if you are interested in using OpenAI's API, so you can use the GPT models in your applications, I will make another video series on that topic specifically. This video is broken down into 3 main categories where I think GPT is the most useful for software developers. And that is writing, of course, code generation, and also learning. One thing I've noticed in using this tool for about 1.5 years now is that sometimes it can really speed up your development work, and in other cases, it can slow you down. So I'm going to give some of those examples later in the video. Make sure you subscribe for future videos in this series, and don't forget to join my Discord in the description below, especially if you have any suggestions for future videos in this series or any other series. Let's get started learning more about ChatGPT.
To get started, I want to run through the interface. So if you log in or sign up for an account, this is what you're going to see in the chat interface. Now, I don't want to explain too many things, but if you haven't seen it before or you haven't given yourself a good self-tour, then I just want to point out a couple of things. So starting at the top of the screen, you have this drop-down selection here where you can choose the model that you want to use. Now, if you have a free account, then I think you'll only have one option here, and that's GPT 3.5. And if you have the paid account for, I think, $20 a month, you'll get this option, GPT 4. There's also this other option that I'll point out in a second. And this right icon just means it's going to create a new chat for you if you want to start on another topic or just a new chat. Now, this little arrow here, open sidebar. In the sidebar, you still have the same thing at the top to create a new chat. You also have this option, Explore GPTs. These are already created custom GPTs for certain use cases. So if you look here, you can see in pretty much every different kind of genre or vertical, there's something available. Like the Code Guru is trained specially to review code, write pull requests, etc. They have a whole filter for programming if you want to explore, or you can also search for what you want. I'll point out a few later in the video that I've tried. Then on the side, the rest of the side, you can see all of your history organized by rough dates. So today, yesterday, previous 7 days, and then it goes back to 30 days. And those are all grouped together. Unfortunately, there is no way to really search, or there's no search feature here through your history, but you can rename these. For example, if I wanted to rename this, I could rename it into something that makes sense, and I would be able to search for more easily later because I can just use the in-browser search with Command or Control F. And every time you create a new chat and start interacting with it, it will add it over here to the history on the side. But if you do not want to add it to the history or used to train GPT models, then you can come back here to this drop down again, where you can select which model you want to use. and you can turn on temporary chat. Now, I'm not sure if temporary chat is available for not paid users, but it basically allows you to create a chat that won't be saved to your history, and it also won't create memories. So this is kind of a newer GPT feature that tries to remember certain details about you or things that you've said to it in the past, so it can create a more customized experience for you. And then also, if you don't want whatever you're chatting with it here to be used to train models, this is the best thing to do. Just use a temporary chat. Before, if you were using the chat interface instead of the API, then anything I think could be used to train models. But now it's nice that they have this option. If you're using some company information or something and your company allows it, you can use one of these temporary chats. So you don't have to worry as much about that. Now it does say, won't let me scroll here. Now it does say that they may store whatever you chat about here for up to 30 days, probably for some kind of legal or compliance purposes. But that's just something to take note of. One more thing is this drop down or drop up rather here on the bottom left. You can see it has your settings and your plan and some customizations. If you go into customize ChatGPT here, you can see that it allows you to enter some custom instructions in 2 boxes. So the first one, it's asking, what would you like ChatGPT to know about you to provide better responses? I think each of these can be 1,500 characters, so there's quite a lot you can enter here. I've been experimenting with some different things, but basically I'm just telling it that I'm a software developer and a little bit about my style of writing. So I don't want it to give me extra words. I just want to be direct and to the point. And then here, it also allows you to put how you would like ChatGPT to respond, how I want responses formatted, etc. So I just put don't include comments inside of code blocks. Now, sometimes it seems to respect this and sometimes it forgets. So I kind of emphasized it here. I just want to be able to easily copy and paste the code that I ask for without comments in the middle. This does not include doc strings for functions and classes. I still want those. And then here, I just detail when I'm asking for writing samples, use straightforward, clear language without many extra descriptive words. Sometimes ChatGPT loves to throw in lots of extra words. So I tell it, get to the point. Again, I've been playing around with what to put here, what works, how to get it to respond in the way that I want. And overall, I think it's helpful. I can see a difference in the responses when I create new chats after I turn on this customized GPT option. Here is the toggle, so enable for new chats, which of course means that any previous chats or any chats you already have open, this won't be applied to those, only to new ones you create after you turn this on and save it. And then if you look at the bottom here, and I think, yeah, these are only available for GPT-4, so if you're a paid user, but you can denote, do you want it to be able to browse the internet, generate images, and actually execute code inside of the chat interface. Now I want to talk about how to use ChatGPT for common writing tasks that we use in software development. I've noticed over the last year with so many updates to ChatGPT, it's really doing a great job of being able to remember context. And that's helpful for making writing a really iterative process. So I'm going to start prompting here. Now, one thing I want to note is I keep hearing people talk about all these different acronyms for properly prompting, and you have to do it by star or by, in a certain format. And most of them seem to way overcomplicate things, at least for the chat interface. I think the most important things are just clearly describing the task or problem and then including any relative context. Those 2 things will get you most of the way there, and then usually you can just iterate on the rest. If the problem is more complicated, you might also have to include a list of steps or break it down into a series of steps and prompt it one at a time. A lot of formats and acronyms that you'll run across, I think, are more useful when you're building applications and interacting with it via the API, because then you need to have a standard format and also expect something that you'll get back every time in a certain standard format. Since the chat interface is much more iterative, we can optimize for that here. For writing specifically, it's important to mention your writing style or the style you want something written in and what format you want the output to be in. I'm going to use the example of creating product documentation here. So I just pasted in some information about an application that I've been working on, the curriculum app. You might have seen other videos on my channel. I probably did maybe 50 live streams about this application. So this is just some of the basic details about the app, and then MVP features and version 1 features. I just copy pasted this from the README. So this is the context and information about the app. Now I'm going to just clearly tell ChatGPT what I'm expecting. And I like to do this in steps, especially when I'm writing something a bit longer. It seems to perform much better. And by the way here, before I do my first prompt, you'll see here that the last segment was ChatGPT 4, but yesterday ChatGPT 4.0 just came out, so now I'm trying out this newest model. It's definitely much better for images, and I'm testing it out for coding and writing as well. So I'm going to tell it that, so this is just a very simple prompt telling it clearly what I need. I'm looking for product documentation for the application that I'm describing here. Can you give me an outline that I can use for the main page? Now I could tell it what writing style I'm looking for here. I always like things to be concise, and it should also be professional as it's product documentation for this. Now, you might hear about delimiters, things you put between the text of the prompt that you're giving it and any context or examples, etc., that you're going to feed it in the prompt. But I've noticed that ChatGPT really does a good job of being able to differentiate without having to use delimiters. Now, if you're making API requests again, you probably want to tell it you're going to use delimiters like 3 backticks or something like that. But just from putting new lines between these items, it should be able to tell what is what. So I'm going to click enter here. And you can see it gave me a pretty good outline to get started with. And then after I ask for an outline for whatever I'm writing, then usually I'll go to a certain section and iterate on that section one at a time. So for example here, I might want to feed it more information, but I could just dump some information and have it expand upon this section here. And it expanded on it, just guessing based off of what I said. Now, one thing it does really well is if I want to go back and maybe get a better set of step-by-step instructions, I can actually feed it images from my real application. So if I go to the curriculum app GitHub, I can get the mockups from here. Now I just uploaded my 4 screenshots for my application, and I'm going to ask it again. And you can see, because it read the screenshots, it gave me much better step-by-step instructions this time. Now, one thing to know about any kind of images you're uploading is you can only do that, or that feature is only available for GPT-4 or 4.0, which are both paid. Now, I've been doing this for a while using GPT-4, and it works just fine. It seems to be a little bit better now with GPT 4.0, just in terms of reading the images and the speed at which it produces this result. Using AI for things like product documentation can really speed it up, because you can just dump a bunch of words and context, and it helps you make sense of them, organize them. You can even ask it now. Like I could ask it. So I'm just asking it for some recommendations if it thinks I should add anything to the docs. And this is much better or much more useful than sometimes just searching for it, because this model knows my specific context, what application I'm building, what the product docs look like, and then it's recommending different sections that I can add to the product documentation, like best practices. That's just one example. Another thing I found it incredibly useful for, I'm going to start a new chat here, is meeting documentation. So at every company, unless maybe you work solo, you will have meetings. And even if you work alone, you will probably have meetings with clients or some type of meeting. In software development, we commonly have agile ceremonies of some flavor. So for example, when I joined the company I'm at now, they didn't really have documentation for these types of meetings. So back then, several years ago, I spent hours writing documentation, outlines, doing research, etc. But if it were today, or if I had to do this again, I could come here with the help of ChatGPT and say something like, so here I'm asking it for an outline for an agile retrospective. I'm giving it some context about the retrospective. I could also tell it maybe what type of company at a, let's say, seed stage startup. It needs to include the specific amount of time allotted for each part of the retro, and also include a list of suggestions for things to bring up during the retro. I don't know why I put a question mark there, but let me hit enter. And it gives me a very nice outline. Now this is all in Markdown as well, so I can easily copy this and put it in something like Notion or Microsoft or Google Docs or wherever. I think it's pretty good. I could keep asking questions and iterating. I could break this down into multiple docs if I wanted to put the suggestions in its own document and link them. Sometimes I also like to have it summarize a meeting, depending on the type of meeting, of course. If I want it to summarize the meeting, I will scrub any identifiable information from the notes that I'm giving it. And now, of course, I would use the temporary chat option here, and then I can just dump a whole bunch of notes. It actually has quite a large context window compared to a year or so ago. So I can just dump a whole bunch of notes and it gives me a pretty good summary. I can generate a list of follow-up questions, a list of key points, etc. Some other types of writing that we use frequently, or we need to do frequently as software developers, is pull requests. So I'm going to start a new chat here, and I have this pull request. This actually isn't the best example because it's just a draft pull request that I pushed because I had to hurry up and finish a live stream. But I'm going to just feed this information to the model and see what it does. One thing I like to do, not just for pull requests, but when I'm onboarding into a new code base now, especially if it's a language or framework I don't know, is I'll take a screenshot of the file structure and have ChatGPT explain to me what all the files are doing, how they interact, and I can get kind of a high-level overview in just a few minutes. So what I'm going to do here is take a couple screenshots. Just put them here for now so it can see the changes that I've made. I'm going to ask it to give me a summary of this pull request. So it gave me a description, which I think is actually pretty good, considering I only gave it the title of the pull request and which files were changed. Hopefully that means I named things well. I don't think it needs to include this, files changed. That's kind of extra because I can just see that in GitHub. So it kind of gave me a summary. Now I can ask it, can you give me a list of steps? So now I'm asking it for a list of steps the reviewer can use to test this PR as a markdown checklist. That way I can just copy paste it into the PR description. So it gave me some just general ones, some manual testing, run the application, verify functionality, test the seed data, etc. It is a little bit verbose, so I could ask it to condense these a little bit or remove some of the general purpose obvious checks. I would probably have the obvious or the general ones already in a PR review checklist. They aren't custom to this PR. So it did almost the same thing, so that's not great. I'd probably have to manually remove some of these. I think it just removed the general, which was the exact word that I used in my prompt. Anyway, this is just one idea. Now, GitHub does have a feature where it generates PR descriptions, but my team and I used that a little bit last year, and actually the descriptions weren't very helpful. I'm sure it's evolved a lot since then, but the descriptions back then were basically like this, like a list of files changed and what was changed in the file. And I was just thinking, well, I could just go look at the code and see what was changed in the file. Now I think that feature is behind the enterprise tier, so I haven't used it in a while. And if you watched my last interview on this channel with Greg, a co-founder at Graphite, Graphite is a Git tool and is very helpful for also making PRs. He said he's also working on that same problem, being able to generate descriptions for PRs using AI with the Graphite tool. Another thing that AI saves me a lot of time in, or for, is generating itineraries. So either agendas for group on-sites or just quickly generating an itinerary before I go into a meeting, and that way I know what I'm talking about. Now, I did kind of talk about meeting documentation, which is more permanent and a general list to follow. But meeting itineraries usually are more specific and just used when I'm meeting with a specific person or company. Or if, for example, I'm planning a company on-site, I could ask AI, then I should probably provide it some additional context. We are a remote team that is meeting in person in Boston. In Boston, 2 of us are meeting the rest of the team for the first time, and you get the idea. So now it will create a general plan for the company on-site, blocking off the times that are reserved for the whole company, and then give me kind of an agenda. Very nice. It included going on Boston Harbor, some hackathon project, a farewell dinner. A pretty good job. Another big thing, especially right now, is helping write resumes and follow-up emails, and even just notes for reaching out to people at various companies trying to establish a connection. I don't think any of these things can be fully automated yet, but it's definitely a really helpful iteration tool and can help you quickly update your resume for different roles or cater emails and responses to different people. And it can even review your resume if you want some feedback on it. So this is actually a resume that I created, I don't know how many years ago. It's probably, back in 2017, I created this resume. So I'm going to just copy this old resume here, and I'm going to paste it here. And I'm going to say, let's just put relevant experience. So I could say something like that, and I will press send. And now it's updating, keeping the same format that I gave to it. Now I'm going to say, so I gave it some information for the cover letter. You can see this took me maybe a minute to think about and a minute to write. It gave me a pretty solid email. Now, one thing about this writing style, I really don't like using words like, I am writing to express my interest in the systems engineer position. This does not sound like a regular, normal human. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it here. Now I'm going to ask ChatGPT. Now I'll see how it revises it. Now it sounds a little bit more normal. although I'd probably replace this with something that I've practically done, not something so nebulous like I've honed my skills in system architecture. What does that mean? Overall, it's pretty good. One thing about especially resume and interview prompts is a ton of people have posted recommendations and formats that you can use for prompts to be able to write cover letters and thank you emails and all of those sorts of things. So you can do a quick internet search about that and then use some of those templates to help you. One important part of documentation is also drawings. So a lot of times you want to create, product documentation or even a design doc or something like that. And you want to include some kind of diagram. So, for example, if I'm writing a design doc for an Auth0 multi-factor authentication implementation, for example, I have these diagrams that I created in my previous video about architecture. So I don't know why it's not showing up here. It's an ERD, but I also have, I can see it in the canvas for some reason. Anyway, you can see that I have an ERD here, and I thought I also had a sequence diagram. Maybe not for this one, maybe that's somewhere else. But anyway, I'm going to see if I can create one. Let me just leave it at that and see what it gives me. I should probably include more information about the Auth0 setup, so I could say I'm using, all right, I'll see what it gives me here. And this is actually great because previous models, I think, would try to give me a picture, just draw a photo, and it would be very, very bad. Maybe I'll show you a screenshot of one. But now it's just giving me mermaid out of the box without me even asking for it. So let me copy this. Okay, well, if you have this turned on in settings, you can ask it to run code for you. And you can see there's nothing really accurate about this. Sorry, it's kind of funny. Nothing really accurate about this except the title here. So if you want an accurate diagram, although sometimes I do have it generate simple mermaid for me and it does pretty well. So I'm not sure actually what is wrong with this diagram. But if you want a more accurate diagram, I recommend using the tool that I had on my channel before, Eraser. I think it does a pretty good job, and they are iterating on using AI specifically to make diagrams like this. The other option is using a custom GPT here. So if you explore custom GPTs, and I can just search for diagram. I've tried a couple of these before. Let me just try again. Some of these you have to sign up for accounts with. So it's augmented generation, so they're using an external service to make the diagram better, or some additional training. IT architecture, let's just try the most popular one. Okay, I'm going to start chat. I'm going to paste what I, no, not that one. I'm going to copy this. I can, copy that. Oh, I didn't type anything in the chat, so it didn't save. So I'll go back to diagram, go here, start chat, and now I'm going to paste and see what it gives me. Okay, diagram, show me charts, wants to talk to this external service, so I'm going to allow. Pretty good. Definitely much better than the mermaid that was generated. Although again, I have had good luck with generating mermaid when I iterate on it a little bit in ChatGPT, so I'm not sure what happened there. But I guess I haven't tried without telling it specific things, but this definitely did a pretty good job. I would probably ask it, if I was to iterate on this, I'd probably ask it to rearrange these things, maybe move settings to the left, and then put Auth0 Universal Login to the right, maybe add my server-side token auth and some other things. I have tried some other custom GPTs, just playing around with them mostly. There are some that are interesting, like for images. Some of the programming ones are specifically trained for different languages or frameworks, but I haven't seen a huge benefit over just using a regular ChatGPT and prompting it like I normally do. I'm interested in some of the productivity ones, especially the ones that have integrations with other services, like I use Canva for designing things. And these diagram apps or diagramming custom GPTs seem to be getting better and better. So I'm interested in these. I think some of these are already very helpful, especially I think most popular services either have a custom GPT or are working on some type of integration with ChatGPT. I've also used some writing tools for example, adding references or a research page, or helping me fill in missing information or generate new ideas, etc. One problem I have is that there are so many of these, and sometimes when you go look at ratings for them, I think very few people rate overall, and it seems to be generally if they're unhappy, and maybe when they just first launched the GPT and they've improved. So the ratings and reviews haven't necessarily reflected the quality of the GPT, and there are just so many to look at that it can feel very noisy. So mostly I just filter by the most popular ones and just go down the list until I find something that I like. Well, that's it for part 1 of this video on how to use ChatGPT as a software developer. Part 2 will be about code generation with ChatGPT, so stay tuned for that. If you have any feedback or any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And my Discord link is also linked in the description of this video if you want to continue the discussion over there. So thank you and have a great week, and see you in the next video.